We're starting the review for trig for test 3. Problem number 1 on the study guide says verify the identity, show all steps. Sine of x over cosine of x plus cosine of x over sine of x. They want me to prove that that equals secant of x over cosecant of x. We need to have handy our identity sheet so that we can refer to it for some of these changes that we need to make. We also need to have our unit circle handy and our exact value chart. If you have these three things, you ought to be ready to do this study guide. For the first problem, notice that on the left-hand side I have an addition problem, and on the right-hand side I have a product. So I want to rewrite this left-hand side and add these two fractions together. In order to do that, I need a least common denominator. That least common denominator is cosine of x times sine of x. Compare this denominator to cosine of x, sine of x, and you will see that you need to multiply this denominator by sine of x. You need to multiply the second denominator by cosine of x. Whatever you multiply those denominators by, you have to also multiply the numerators by. So this becomes sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x. You know from your identity sheet that sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. So we have 1 over cosine of x sine of x. That can be separated into 1 over cosine of x times 1 over sine of x. Because this still means 1 over cosine sine. We know from the identity sheet that 1 over cosine is secant, and that 1 over sine is cosecant. So we have secant of x times cosecant of x, and we just proved the first identity. Number 2. Complete the identity tangent of x times cotangent of x minus cosine of x equals 1 minus sine of x. If I am sort of at a loss for how to proceed on a proof, I sometimes try changing everything to sine and cosine. I think that's what we need to do on this one. It's a good idea because I want to wind up with sine in my answer over here. When I work with this side, I want to work it around where I come out with 1 minus sine. So here we go. We know tangent is sine of x over cosine of x. We know cotangent is cosine of x over sine of x minus cosine of x. Now distribute. Multiply this term by both of these terms inside of the parentheses. When you multiply these first two together, you're going to come out with 1 because everything cancels. When you multiply this outside expression by the last term, the cosines will cancel because it's like that cosine is over 1, and you will have just sine of x left. And guess what? You just proved another one. Number 3. We want to prove that cosecant of x plus 1 times cosecant of x minus 1 all over cotangent squared of x equals 1. Write your problem down. In the numerator, I see that I can multiply these two. That will give me cosecant squared of x minus 1. In the denominator, I will have cotangent squared of x. And then I'll look at my identity sheet. On my identity sheet, I'll look at those Pythagorean identities, and I see what I have that might be able to be substituted. We have a Pythagorean identity that's 1 plus cotangent squared equals cosecant squared. If I subtract 1 from each side, I will have cotangent squared equals cosecant squared of x minus 1. That means that in place of cotangent squared in this denominator, I can write cosecant squared of x minus 1. So I will have cosecant squared of x minus 1 over cosecant squared of x minus 1. And when you have the same thing in the numerator that you have in the denominator, that all cancels out and you just got 1. Or I could have said cosecant squared of x minus 1 is cotangent squared of x, and I could have left the cotangent squared of x in the denominator. I could have gone from here to here, or I could have gone from here to here. Either way works. When I'm hand grading these, I'll look at your work. If you do this way, you get full credit. If you do this way, you get full credit.